Is this the lead for the services?
Yes, yes. On a separate seat.
I'm not going to sit anyone's meeting.
No, not today. Not today. Yes. The drama. Somebody had just arrived in Untitled Chapter. On the internet, it says it's also a service for
to invest a few more new dollars. They work on that side, they don't get work on this side. So I was going to try and get some extra heavy duty things. But those ones they've got little pads that put them on the wall so you can especially them.
Yes. Yeah. I know why we are why. It's still like
Your usual conversations with church.
For the beauty of the earth? For this spinning blue-green ball? Yes. Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live, welcome us. And welcome to all of you. Good morning. I hope that you have had pleasant journeys here despite the rain. I don't want to see a bit envious for those who are able to listen in online and perhaps enjoy a bit of a warm extra time in bed. But I'm grateful for your presence here and online, for all of you who have made the commitment to be here and to help create a community. For that's what we're doing this morning, is we're creating a community by our presence and by our commitment to liberal values as well as a commitment to each other. And whatever it is that you have come here hoping to find, be it a place for joy and laughter, a place for tears and sorrow, a place for a few words of wisdom, perhaps just a chance to rest with the divine. Whatever it is that you have come seeking here, I hope it will be found. We began our worship with the words of Barbara Haskin, and we turn now to a few words of Leslie Paul Cosbow to light our chalice, which is an act that Unitarian chapels across the world will be taking part in. So we join them in our community as well. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral heart, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom. We strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. And so, with our chalice lit, I invite you to join in singing our first hymn, number 77 in the Purple Book, and it's going to be played through completely by Catherine, as it's a tune we're perhaps unfamiliar with. In the Morning, words by Myrna Michelle, hymn number 77. Let us turn now to a time of prayer with these words of O. E.G. Hickett. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations. We give thanks this day for this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons. We give thanks this day for the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements. We give thanks this day for our human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression. We give thanks this day for high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared. We give thanks this day for all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. We give thanks this day for human liberty and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. We give thanks this day. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Amen. You are invited to join together in reciting our covenant, which will appear on the screen for those watching online and is in your printed order of worship, which I've realized I do not have a copy of, so I'm going to lean over to Catherine to read it. Or borrow from that. Thank you. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Our first reading today is from from Fault Line by the Reverend Robert Walsh, who is the Minister Emeritus of the First Parish Church of Duxbury in Massachusetts. Did you ever think there might be a fault line passing underneath your living room? A place in which your life is lived in meeting and in separating, wondering and telling, unaware that just beneath you is the unseen seam of great plates that strain through time, and that your life, already spilling over the brim, could be invaded, sent off in a new direction, turned aside by forces you were warned about but not prepared for. Shelves could be spilled out, the level floor set at an angle and some seconds shaking. You would have to take your losses, do whatever must be done next. When the great plates slip and the earth shivers and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured border. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the restive earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. Fault Line by Robert Walsh. And so now you have a chance to share your fault lines, your joys, your sorrows, your trials, and your triumphs. If you want to share these publicly, you can light a candle and say a few words. Please do come to the microphone so that those listening online will be able to participate. If you are listening online, please type into the chat, and I will read out your message to the congregation. If you wish to light a candle in silence, you are welcome to do so. And as always, if you prefer to hold these joys and sorrows in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. And I wanted to begin I had a lovely conversation with my family last night. We met over Zoom, those sort of wonders of technology, and it was great to see sort of so many people in my family, including a few that I hadn't seen either at all or in a very long while. So it was a beautiful sort of evening for me.
In the midst of so many different concerns with family, locally, nationally, internationally, Cody has reminded me of the things we need to be glad of. I was happy to spend my last evening with some members of my family whom I haven't seen in person for some months, so that was good news. I was also at a memorial service last week in our Rivington chapel when there was a memorial service for an old Unitarian friend, Dennis Crompton, and the chapel was filled, I'm embarrassed to say, to overflowing by Unitarians of at least 3, if not 4 generations, little children to oldies like myself, and it was good to be able to connect up with them after a very long time.
I'm lighting this candle for 2 reasons. Tomorrow it's quite a big anniversary for me. It's 5 years since I had my stoma surgery. I have quite a lot of mixed emotions around it, but gratitude ultimately, because I'm still here. And the second reason is that Tuesday is my mum's birthday.
funny, I also had one from my family before anyone else even spoke, so it's kind of a theme this morning, it seems. My grandma was living in the US, and she was living in an old folks home, but she wasn't really settling in. So she's now moving in with my aunt, and my cousin is moving out of my aunt's house into her own place with her 2 babies. So I'm just thinking of all of them and hoping that they're happier in their new arrangement.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. We come now to our second hymn, Carl Jr.'s For the Splendor of Creation, which is hymn number 39, again in the Purple Book, For the Splendor of Creation. Our second reading today comes from the book Finding Sanctuary by the Abbot Christopher Jameson, which is a book that's been on my shelf for quite a while, and I draw upon it usually once every few years, at least in the service, sometimes this reading as well. So, and it's Finding Sanctuary was initially a reality program, a reality TV program, where a group of monks brought in several men to sort of explore living as I think Benedictine monks, if my memory serves me. And this was Abbot Christopher Jameson's account of the experience and the sort of creation, I suppose, of spiritual discipline. The root of the word humility is the Latin word humus, which means soil or earth. From this there follows a very practical definition. To be humble is to be down to earth. This leads into being realistic, honest, and truthful. The root also connects humility to humanity, because to be human is to be made from the humus. Homo sapiens is the piece of earth that knows it is alive, an insight beautifully expressed in the book of Genesis. Adam is the name of the one made out of Adamah, the Hebrew word for the ground. He is sapiens because he has knowledge, is able to name things and to choose which fruits of paradise to enjoy. But the one fruit he must not enjoy is the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The temptation for Adam and Eve is to give up being of the humus, humble and human, and to become gods, the ultimate act of pride. This lack of humility and humanity is their downfall. Paradise is lost. And this is, of course, written, as I say, from a traditional sort of Benedictine perspective as well. The story is played out in the life of each human being, as people struggle to be down to earth and avoid the temptation to act as if they were the divine center of the universe. If you examine human interactions that go wrong, whether in bitter arguments or wars, there is usually somewhere a lack of humility and an excess of arrogance. Humility is about our struggle to be fully human, about the desire to be rooted in the real earthly self and not to be deceived by the lie of the divine self. This basic human task is shared by people of all eras and all places. So when I'm asked if I believe in the Genesis creation story, I always reply that it is the truest story that I know. Abbot Christopher Jameson's Finding Sanctuary. So let us return now to a time of prayer with these words of the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. Here, in the refuge of this Sabbath home, we turn our busy minds toward silence and our full hearts toward one another. We move together through the mysteries, the bright surprise of birth and the shadowed questions of death. In our slow walk between the two, we will be wounded, and we will be showered with grace, amazing and unending. Even in our sorrows, we feel our lives cradled in holiness we cannot comprehend. And though we each walk within a vast loneliness, the promise we offer here is that we do not walk alone. This is a holy place in which we gather. The light of the earth brought in and held, touched then by our answering light. The flame on a chalice, the flicker of a candle, the lamps of our open faces brought near. In this place of silence and celebration, solemnity and music, we make a sanctuary and name our home. Into this home we bring our hunger for awakening. We bring compassionate hearts and a will toward justice. Into this home we bring the courage to walk on after hard losses. Into this home we bring our joy and gratitude for ordinary blessings. By our gathering we bless this place, and in its shelter we know ourselves blessed. So we now enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. Thank you, Catherine. You are feeling better. We come now to our next hymn in the Purple Book, number 147, Spirit of Earth, Root, Stone, and Tree, hymn number 147.
Oh,
The philosopher Kierkegaard once quipped that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Nowadays, I'm not so sure about the former. I think we all have times when we pause and we reflect and we ask ourselves, well, how did I get here? And as much as we might like to think that the universe is ordered and structured and sensible, if only in the rearview mirror, there are times when even that dim view is obscured by fog. Fog of war, fog of pandemic, the fog of historic knowledge, heck, the fog of Manchester. So it is with this view, then, that we might turn to Robert Walsh's reading Fault Line. Do we have those seismic events in our lives when the order of the universe is thrown into disarray, when our deepest held convictions are held to the fire and yet found to be wanting? I often think back to a dream in my youth, a recurring dream, a feeling that all I had been taught and understood to be the way the world worked had turned out to be wrong. It was a dream that shook me to the core and still acts as an anchor to my flights of fancy. Be careful, kid, it seems to say. Like Icarus, your wings are held with wax. So many things in the past 18 months that could be considered seismic. Living through a pandemic has brought a new awareness of the nature of medicine and science, at least for me, and I suspect others. We, of course, have glib comments about learning new things. Some might even reference the philosopher Karl Popper, who asserted that science was always the least incorrect theory. That is, we are constantly reevaluating what we know and rewriting old equations to better reflect this new knowledge. So we had those stock answers, but now we have truly lived through a period of immense learning and seen ourselves at the edge of science and medicine. Probably as lay people, still a step away from the cliff edge of knowledge, still behind the scientists and doctors, but close to the limits of humanity's understanding. Close enough to see the birth of knowledge in all its contradiction and challenge. We have also heard voices always calling, always having called, but finally, hopefully, breaking through. These are the voices of the oppressed, the marginalized, the enslaved, and the tortured. The generations shackled by the past, by laws and institutions and traditions and cultures that would deem less than. These are people who are fighting for racial equality. They have been fighting for centuries, showing us how the world is not as equal as we might like to think it is. Their voices shake the foundations of our understanding as well. But this isn't new knowledge. It's just new to many of us. Both of these events have in some way shaken my core, and as Walsh intones, with faith in creating a more compassionate and full and true person. They have grounded me against certain excesses of pride, lowered me just enough to keep my wings intact, and restored that humus that preserves my humanity. I had initially, with Abbot Jameson's reading, cut off the last couple sentences, but then thought to include them. Though I don't like his expression, the lie of the divine self. I think I understand what he is referencing. I also appreciate that he is approaching the question of humanity from a significantly different theological vantage than my own. I think he is speaking of a view that we see ourselves perhaps as so fully divine as to exist completely outside of time, a belief that the world does not affect us. Again, like Icarus, being able to fly absolutely as high as possible without thinking of the effects of the heat of the sun. This is the South that, when asked if we're okay, would reply, "We're fine, thanks." We're rarely fine. Sometimes we're distraught. Sometimes we're overjoyed. Sometimes we're sullen. Sometimes we're bitter or angry. And sometimes we're ecstatic. None of those expressions I would deem fine. We are placid or content from time to time, but how easily is our equilibrium disturbed by stones cast across its surface? What impact these ripples through our lives, making us something other than fine, thanks. No, we definitely exist in this world. We might have some ambition to step outside, to transcend it, but I suspect we are all reminded from time to time that, yes, we are human. That's partly why we gather here, to reaffirm both the divine self, defined as you wish, and the human self. In pre-COVID times, we would mark today as our peace service, and I do hope to still have a service in the church here where we can focus on the issues of peace and compassion, perhaps hearing from someone locally for whom this has been a passion. Until then, I wanted us to reflect on some words of the farmer Wendell Berry. Berry gave the commencement address to Lindsey Wilson College in 2005. The full text of his speech has sadly been lost, at least to amateur sleuths on the internet, such as myself, but some of his observations have remained intact. War depresses public dialogue and debate. It enlarges executive power, diminishes citizens' rights, encourages governmental secrecy and deception, and deforms the outlines of human decency. Thus, a government making war for the sake of peace, freedom, and human dignity, as it will never cease to declare, will curtail the rights of prisoners, resort to torture, deny its errors, exaggerate its virtues, demonize the enemy, and, as is inevitable in modern war, kill many innocent people. But he speaks in his address not just of military war. He expands it further. We honor greed and waste with the name of economy. We allow ever greater wealth and power to accumulate in the hands of a privileged few, only to provide jobs for working people and charity to the poor. And finally, a few of his words that have remained imprinted on my mind many years after I first heard them. The line that connects the bombing of civilian populations to the mountain removed by strip mining to the tortured prisoner seems to run pretty straight. We're living, it seems, in the culmination of a long warfare against human beings, other creatures, and the earth itself. I had a teacher, I think at the time that I heard this address, who provoked us into thinking about love as being a holistic enterprise. We can claim to be loving, and we can show loving care to our family. But if this is coupled with an aggression outside of the home, if we act indifferent to the homeless, if we are hostile to our co-workers, if we rail at the motorists beside us on the way to church, are we really living a loving life? And we know that small actions ripple through society in time. Not just the R number of infectious coughs but the exhalation of anger that in turn sours someone else's day. What do they do with that negative energy? They pass it on to the next person. In his book Island, Aldous Huxley reminds us that science is not enough. Religion is not enough. Art is not enough. Politics and economics is not enough. Nor is love, nor is duty, nor is action, however disinterested, nor, however sublime, is contemplation. Nothing short of everything will really do. The book describes a utopian society in Southeast Asia that draws upon Eastern Buddhism and Western philosophy to create a culture dedicated to peaceful community, with all energy focused on the care of as many people as possible. We might hear Huxley's words not just as a rejoinder to care for each other, celebrating our differences, but also to care and honor the varieties, the various identities and facets of our own lives in all their multitudes, to steal from Emerson. For we do contain multitudes, and so does the world. Over the course of billions of years, a diversity has risen forth, been declared good, and is now approaching a breaking point. We have seen cycles of violence and hatred ebb and flow through history, and now in our lifetime, we hold the mantle. As we pass it to the next generation, where will we direct them? What will we leave for them? For it is all needed. Indeed, to break that straight line of which Wendleberry warns, nothing short of everything will really do. Amen. A few notices before we conclude our service. If you're in need of pastoral care, please speak to me here in person, or you can write to minister at crossstreetchapel.org.uk. You can write as well if you wish to provide a reading, or if you've just joined us, you can join our mailing list by writing to me at minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. There will be tea and coffee after the service. Do we have anyone to assist or help with that? Thank you. Anastasia, thank you. There is, as some of you may know, a performance this afternoon at 3 p.m. on breaking the silence about the British slave trade. It's a sort of recreation of an abolitionist meeting. It's free. They've asked you to register on Eventbrite, so I'm not sure if there are free places or not, but if you want to sort of look for a book a ticket, we can, I'm sure, get something in right after the service. So that's today at 3 p.m. and it's free. There's a couple other performances I want to make you aware of. Next Saturday, we have a performance called Afro-Cats, from our group Afro-Cats, called Umbrellas in the Sun. This is a group that meet at the chapel of refugees and asylum seekers, and it's been created by their sort of youth program. That is at 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock, 2 performances, an hour long each. Tickets are £4, and if you are interested in the project but perhaps aren't able to go, you are encouraged to purchase a ticket for an asylum seeker who, of course, have limited funds and as well can have very often sort of lonely, isolated existences while they wait for their applications to be processed. So they have the ability to purchase tickets for asylum seekers if you're interested. There is also coming up in November, the 13th, Saturday the 13th at 7:30, a celebration of Anne Bronte's 200, which actually was, I think, last year, but for some reason has been delayed. So we look forward to that. Tickets for that are £15 or £12 with concessions, and there's sort of more leaflets and posters like this dotted around the chapel, so do have a look for that. I am hoping to start a session of Layla Saad's course, Me and White Supremacy, in the next few weeks. So if you're interested in joining that, it will likely be conducted in the evenings on Zoom. This is what was initially set up as a 4-week-long course that looks at a different aspect of white supremacy, white supremacist thinking, and sort of initiatives for us to sort of break out of racist, sort of, subconscious racist patterns and not so subconscious racist patterns. Let me know if you're interested in joining for that. As well as at the end of the month, the 31st, I hope to be holding an Introduction to Unitarianism course for new attendees. It's not just Unitarianism, but more specifically Cross Street Chapel. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. Finally, we're grateful for any donations that can assist the mission of our chapel. You're able to donate online at tinyurl.com/crossstreetdonate. And if you are here in person, we have a retiring collection and envelopes available for gift aid if you are a UK taxpayer. Are there any announcements from the congregation?
Yes. We are hoping to start the recitals next month as well.
So the 26th, we will be restarting our monthly lunchtime recitals. November, thank you. November 26th, 1 p.m. Friday. And our first artist is Ugnius, Paolo Konis, who we've seen, of course, perform here at Chapel for those recitals as well as on our Sundays. Fantastic musician. Do check it out. There will be more details closer to the time, and we're hoping it will be recorded and available online later that day. So let us then sing our final hymn, number 124, One More Step. Hymn number 124. Thank you, Catherine, for the music. Thank you, Joe, for greeting, and Peter for helping to set up, Laura for bringing tea and coffee, and Anastasia for preparing it for us. Thank you, Emma, for the IT. And thank you, everyone, for creating and sharing worship today. We close with the words of a Sanskrit hymn. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the realities and truth of existence, the joy of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a memory, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a memory of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Amen.